Happy Thursday, everybody, and welcome to the 74th episode of the World Blockchain Roundtable. Our hosts for today are Joe, founder and architect of Dragon Chain.
Hello.
Agent Greg from Rivet. Lisa Mighty Davis, owner of the new Mighty Lair over on Den Social. Satoshi Sean, entrepreneur and everyone's friend. Welcome back, everybody. I'm your master of ceremonies for today. My name is Dave, or Distant, and you might know me from Den Social, where I tend to hang out. Let's get a quick update on the WBRT layer ownership token distribution from last week's episode, which was on spooky blockchain stories. We had a Keith dropped in, a host that hasn't been on before, so that's always great to have new hosts rotating through. Check out that episode. Each host from that week will receive 95 lot. Each topic contributor from last week will receive 41 lot. And the topic was nominated by me. That was my topic that I submitted because it was Halloween month. So I'll get an additional, an additional 41 lot for that. These ownership tokens come with the right to vote in the DAO for World Blockchain Roundtable, perpetual passive income, free edits in the layer, the ability to post in the layer, the governance vote, so where it's at, you can propose the things we talk about, you can vote on the things that we talk about, and generally direct the show here. So thanks everybody for participating there, and we'll get those tokens out to you. So speaking of the DAO, World Blockchain Roundtable DAO does have November theme suggestions to vote on. So we have, the way that works every month is we'll have a post that goes up in the layer. It'll say, hey, give us your input. What do you want to give us some topic ideas? And that goes for a period of time, and then those replies are put into a DAO voting proposal where you can go in if you have those tokens and vote on them. So there's some options in there. What do we got? We got assessment and analysis on the current war between decentralization versus centralization. Yeah, I think about that a lot. That one keeps me up at night. Maybe I'll vote for it. Megatexas.eth, which you may have seen Greg sporting as his tag here. That could be a topic. Let's make a video game. Ooh, perfect video game. We talked about that on the coffee episode Wednesday on my little morning show that I do. Everybody probably knows I love video games by now. I sometimes don't shut up about it. Taxes, privacy coins, blockchain for accountants. That sounds scary if you're an accountant. Metaverse, the sandbox, DeFi, time development cycles of quality products. It's a heavily misunderstood one. Maybe we could do that one.
Yeah, that's actually a great topic.
Yeah. Possibilities of crypto in the metaverse in the future.
I just put my votes on it.
Stuff. Okay, cool. And then IoT and cross-chain alliances.
It seemed to me like IoT was like the biggest thing. Everyone was talking about it like 3 years ago. And then it just, nobody brings it up anymore.
Yeah, I was looking back into it recently because I was looking into like helium mining and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And they have that LoRaWAN and that like lo-fi thing where it's low and slow. Basically, it's not a fast network, but if you're just getting sensor data, it goes for miles from one receiver, which is cool.
And I would dispute there's going to be a thing called IoT when IoT really matures, right? Like I would say that it's probably going to more snowflake out into like lots of different subcategories, right?
Yeah.
You're going to have e-mobility and electronic appliance interfaces and things like that.
I feel that way about blockchain and crypto. Like I look forward to the time when like crypto and blockchain are terms of the past that were, kind of forced
too general
of a new technology, that kind of thing. It's just what the internet is and is what computers use. And on that, let's roll into like we do leading into the topic, we do a current event, so we can piggyback on that.
That kind of comes up with current events because of what happened the other week with the thermostats in Colorado. I think IoT is the biggest, most the worst security risk to all just regular people.
Well, it's kind of
what happened to the
centralization of the concept that's a little dangerous.
Nobody cares about the security of your smart fridge, but that's connected to your network.
Yeah, Sean, can you elaborate for those that don't know what you mean by like the smart thermostats, and maybe I think you mentioned wells too, even, and stuff like that.
Yeah, the wells thing is just that to me, that like that's it, that's done. Grab your gun. It's time to, revolt. So if you own land, you own the land, and if you put in a well on your land, you have water. And I know that a lot of like statewide and especially countywide, they're getting these smart meters, and they're asking just regular people in the country, in the sticks where like you grew up, to put smart meters on people's personal wells to monitor, just because they say they want to know how much water you're taking. And
right, but if they choose to, they can turn it off.
But yeah, they can turn off your water.
This is related to the thermostat thing. This is what
and the thermostat thing.
Yeah. This is Colorado, also like local to your land too. They're
taking like 90 some degrees, and if you're up north, that's really bad. For here, that's like nothing. It's a nice day, but in like Chicago, if it's 90, old people are dying. Anyway, people went to turn their air on, and their thermostats wouldn't allow it. They got a notification that said that there was a temperature emergency, and they weren't allowed to turn it below 90. So all these
90
people,
though, really?
Yeah,
90.
Oh my God!
Had it been like 79 or 80, it probably wouldn't have made the news. But
this has been coming for some time, and I've been ringing this bell, man. This has been coming with smart thermostats for a while. Anything hooked to anything that consumes the two resources they account for when they try to talk about sustainability, it basically like clean water and cooling or heating.
Mm-hmm.
Those are going to be under targeted micro control.
Interesting. Very interesting.
If we just let it happen.
It's going to be part of your social credit score too. How much food are you wasting in your refrigerator? Right?
Yeah, imagine your social credit score determining how far you can turn your thermostat down.
Well, that's the dark side, right? I know last week was the spooky episode, but like that's the dark side of this stuff. I think about that sometimes when like, we've spent some time recently on Den designing behavioral systems to counteract some behavior that was detrimental that we saw. And, sometimes I think about that. It's like, man, these systems, like if we're not careful, we got to make sure they don't fall in the wrong hands, because this could be used for like that kind of shit. Yeah.
I was watching this interview with this rep from the Communist Chinese Party, and they were asking him about CBDCs, and he's like, yeah, it's really great because like, we would have all this extra data, like how many times, if I get coffee every day, where I buy coffee and how much I drink, if I take an Uber every day, and just other things to know if I'm responsible with my money. And that can be
which is
really,
what they're
really
already
helpful.
doing. Yeah, that's what they're already doing with your.
If I apply for a credit line, or if I do this or that. And I was like, who the hell's business is it? How much coffee I drink?
And also, you don't need a CBDC for that.
And that's already what's on file at the credit reporting agencies.
I don't think people realize. Yeah, the credit card companies already sell your data to like your insurance company. A lot of people don't realize that, but like your insurance company could, let's say you make a claim for lung cancer, and your insurance company gets your credit card information and finds out you've been buying smokes, and denies your claim. That information's already being gathered on you. This, I think this is just bringing it to the nth degree of people. They didn't turn off the refrigerators. They didn't turn off all of the power to their home, just their air conditioners to make them physically uncomfortable. This is about waking people up. This is about bringing awareness to how much you can and will be controlled if you don't start speaking up for yourself and saying, oh, it's somebody else's problem. It doesn't affect me. I don't talk about politics, all this kind of stuff. So that's where I am on it. I know they tried to put a smart meter on our house, and we said, hell no, you're not.
That's
and they said, well, you're going to have to pay $15 more a month. I'm like, fine, charge me $15 more a month, but you're not putting a smart meter on my home.
Yeah, when we get into
lucky that you had that option.
I was going to say, hang on to that too for when we get into the topic, because that's related.
Here in Texas, we don't have that option. It's the electric provider says, hey, we're putting in these smart. I remember when they did it, we're putting in these smart meters, and they said, well, if we don't want a smart meter, and they said, okay, then you can't have electricity. It's not. This is like.
Do you not have another option for an electric company?
Now here, that's kind of the scam. We have, we can get a million different electricity companies for billing, but there's only one provider.
Okay.
So it's kind of like
I only get one option.
You get Cricket or Mint Mobile or
right. Yeah, the grid provider is a separate entity.
But your actual service is through one of the three, AT&T or Sprint or
infrastructure monopoly. So.
Right.
Yeah, I don't even have that at all. I got one option.
Kansas.
Wow.
Yeah. But that's interesting. I was talking to a friend of mine about, like, I haven't done my due diligence on the thing with the wells, John. It's like on my list of things that surprised me that I haven't looked into yet. But I was talking to a friend of mine who's out in Oregon right now, who was saying that basically, like, you have to have water rights on the land that you have, and like what's going on out there right now is there's a lot of people growing cannabis out there, gray market stuff. And a lot of people are soaking up the water on just like on the side of the interstate. It's crazy. It's just like stuff growing everywhere. People have grow ups, and and they can't keep up busting them, and then more of them pop up. It's a weed. It grows everywhere, But he was saying that, like, he could actually see that because there's a lot of like they're trying to figure out how they get people to share what water they have out there because it's drying up.
Well, I mean, the other way they could go though is build more water moving capacity. Like they could have a desalinization plant up and just charge more for access to it.
As a sailor, I've always wondered why more people didn't do that. They live, all these coastal areas, like they have massive. I know it's expensive. I know it's like complicated.
It's not expensive or complicated when you look at it from a governmental standpoint. I've been saying things about that since before I was a conspiracy nut, and even on the internet. It costs, I think it was like $5 billion, and you need 9 container ships, or it costs $9 billion. You need 5 container ships to give water to all of Africa.
Oh, really?
Entire continent.
Jesus, we could do that.
That's like
it's not when it comes to.
You mean the African? You mean the African military?
There needs to be a
basically.
I'm going to get to those people anyway. Yeah. That's not the real problem, is it?
Realistically, this. Crypto has enough collective wealth.
If you looked at it and the goal of what the United Nations is supposed to be, the United Nations could put in a pipeline into all of Africa and give water and police that pipeline.
On a smaller scale, we do stuff like that already. Warlords. If you think about like when Hurricane Katrina hit Louisiana there in the Gulf, we parked an aircraft carrier and some amphibious assault, some amphibs off the coast, and Steady was just like making water and bringing it in because those ships make their own water from the ocean, from the seawater. They have desalinization, and they just like provided water for a while. And you say it's not that expensive and stuff. You're probably right. I don't know how it works at scale, but I remember when I was in Malta and the Mediterranean, there's a little island of Malta, and I was touring some of the there's like a little island called Gozo next to it, and it's just untouched by modern stuff, which is awesome. Relatively.
What?
Gozo.
I was thinking of Gozer.
Not Bozo.
I was thinking of Gozer from Ghostbusters.
Oh yeah.
Like,
but they had all these like they had a big area where it was like squares in the ground that was like rock. They don't really have trees and stuff there. They had all these carved out. Anyway, it was a bunch of squares in the ground. I was like, what is that? And it was like, oh yeah, that's where they used to make fresh water.
Bunch of
like, what do you mean used to? It was like oh yeah, they used to make fresh water. You use desalinization fields. So
that was a good joke. It's early.
Well, I mean, we did that. I don't know the efficiencies, but they also, you think about it, they pull seawater up to pull sea salt as well. You would think that they could just capture the evaporated water. I mean,
yeah,
right.
They could do both.
That's exactly how it works.
If I was writing like a sci-fi book about like, 10 years out on the capabilities of ships and stuff, like you could totally pull the salt out, provide the clean water, use the salt in like a salt reactor to power the engines.
Yep.
Like you could use all that stuff just just right there,
Well, what's crazy to me about all of it is instead they seem focused on becoming drought harbingers. Like they run around and be the water police when they could be building the municipal capacity to have enough water for everybody all the time.
Right.
One cool thing about the Communist Chinese Party is that all of this doesn't mean crap. It's just something that they have out here for us to argue about and talk about. And it doesn't mean crap. If you look at what's happening with Lake Mead in California, and like you mentioned, the drought in Oregon and how much people need water, China has come out and said, oh yeah, we've completely cloud seeded this whole area and made it rain all the time. They've admitted that they completely can control the weather. I've been saying weather controls is real for a long time. It's not even hard. And we could. Well,
and not to mention, Sean, they were dumping the snow melt in California into the ocean to divert it from coming into California where it needs to be.
Lake Mead is down so low, they're like finding bodies from the mob of the 50s.
Oh, man, really?
Yeah, a lot.
They found 5 so far. Yeah.
And my grandma always.
It's not hard. It's not hard to control the weather and make it rain.
Well, it's probably hard.
Admitted to. No,
that the capability exists. I don't think is the big question. How it's applied, I think, is where, like any of this stuff, the double-edged, knife kind of thing. It's probably hard, but that we could once we figure it out, it's not that hard anymore.
It's not, dude.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid, and I've been saying this since I was a child. As a kid, I was really into sci-fi, and I would, watch old sci-fi stuff, and scientists would say, yes, we could control the weather one day if we had these crazy, futuristic things called satellites, where it's like a machine that orbits the planet. And if we had actual real laser beams, which you've seen in this movie here, if we could create a laser beam and put it on something floating in space, that's crazy. But if we had that, it would be very simple to target and heat up clouds, and we could see the clouds with certain things. But all that's insane, and that was in the 50s. So once in the 80s, when I was a kid, and I was like, hey, we have all those things, and that why can't we do this? So obviously we could do this now. I'm like, oh no. Like, how did we go to the moon? Well, we had the technology then, but we don't have it anymore. We threw it away. We don't have it. We can't.
Well, it has decayed. You see what happened to the Artemis launch? I mean, can we get that thing going? That's an example of something that's moon landing era tech being. That's a derailing. I don't mean to. I guess I do mean to. But
well, I was actually going to bring that up because I think the entire thing is theater, because NASA, for after having gone to the moon, struggles to keep the space shuttle worthwhile, becomes a political device, and then all of a sudden SpaceX comes along and others and start doing real work,
right?
And it's just a crazy thing. You're telling me that nation states couldn't do that level?
For like,
it's crazy.
Comparatively, for no money, basically, for a fraction of the cost.
Right, and essentially what it is, it's that, in my opinion, that politically or otherwise, they want people to think, yes, we're on track, we are going to Mars, we are getting back out. It's like, when really it's all just a make work BS. twiddle thumbs exercise. And they shovel money over there, and there's probably some military industrial complex reason for some of it, but the fact that they didn't accomplish anything, and if you think Artemis is got, I'll put money down right now, Artemis is not going to happen. It's either going to, hopefully not end in disaster, but
I wish them well. And I hope that we don't get like a sunk cost fallacy cycle going on that, where you just shove money into it. I'm kind of annoyed that Congress insisted that demanded that if they're going to get money to build that they have to reuse the old engines and the old tech from the shuttle, which has
I heard that they were
applications.
They're building a Frankenstein monster.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, we'll fund it. It has to be done the old stupid way. What?
Yeah, well, I mean, and why wouldn't you just?
A lot of what's going on with
because that's the way we actually get to
space is having people start to, even the super compliant sheeple are having like the wake up moment, like they did during the gingivitis outbreak, where they're like, hey, that doesn't make common sense, and I'm an idiot. Why that doesn't make sense to me? It's like, hey, why don't we go to the moon again? Oh, we can't go to the moon. We had the technology, but we threw it away. It's just too complex. We can't go to the moon, over there. But then how can we go to Mars way over there? Shut up.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Don't think for yourself.
Shout out to Paul Linder.
That's literally why they're trying to slow down the Starship, because they don't want a private company beating them there.
Yep. Exactly. But it's
not trying to go at all, actually.
Sean, you said something about that last week, and I don't know what that is. What is the gingivitis outbreak?
That's
code word. That's code word.
It's the vacations and jobs. They're trying to force you to take a vacation.
Oh,
everybody had gingivitis. I think actually personally, I believe it's because it was spread from someone from Britain came over.
Mandatory.
Everybody got gingivitis, and we all had to close down the restaurants.
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
No buffets for anyone.
Now you can still go to Costco.
A lab in Wuhan.
And you can still go to Sam's. Although you get yelled at if you were if you had your mask on wrong. Because they didn't want to see your gums.
It does sound gross. I want to wear my gingivitis mask.
That reminds me of a controversial tweet that I read.
Actually,
I'm not sure if I should go for it.
Was it deleted?
No. I guess it's not that controversial if it's still up, right?
It wasn't deleted.
Yeah.
What's the guy's name?
Interesting. I wanted to talk about the mask thing. Are you wait while you're looking for that? So I don't know if y'all are. We were talking about video games. I don't know if y'all know about like Twitch. Everyone know about Twitch. It's you watch people play video games and all. And they had TwitchCon recently in California. Okay. Now here's the interesting thing: people in California doesn't have mask mandates anymore. There are no mask mandates.
Right.
And Twitch came out and said we're not going to require masks at TwitchCon. And the people going revolted. And
are you serious?
They went crazy. How dare you be so irresponsible? I'm not going to go because you're putting us all at risk.
Zoomers?
Took 3 days.
People have fuzzy heads.
And then they said, okay, we're going to require masks for people that go to TwitchCon. So it's basically, younger generation.
I've streamed on Twitch, and the only response I get in the reply is, show me your tits or something vulgar like
Twitch.
That. Like
that sounds about right.
Yeah,
Twitch.
I don't.
They get banned for that kind of stuff. Twitch is very, very regulated when it comes to that. Like,
oh no, it's not.
Oh, it is. It is. You get
allegedly,
especially if you're a guy. If you're a girl, you can get away with more stuff. But
that's I.
But if you say something, you can ban people right away. But if a Twitcher, if they do anything like that, except for that one girl who had sex on camera and they gave her a week ban, and then she came back a week later and did it again.
Well, there's just other networks for that, I guess, right?
There you go.
Yeah, that's a funny story, dude. When I was working for Xbox, like a kid. This Karen called up and she was going crazy on me. I think, it was when I was a supervisor, and this woman was like berating one of the agents, right, to take the call because Twitch had given her son a lifetime ban, and if he tried to start another account with something else, they were going to shut it down. And he was 12, and I was like, "You're like my son, blah blah blah." It's like, ma'am, your son was naked on camera, and he's 12 years old. He technically is guilty of putting child porn out there on Twitch. And he was like, "What?" It's like, yeah, I'm sorry, but no, he's been banned forever.
Wow.
Yeah.
It is
what we call the Fed.
Well, so let's talk about Twitter. And I mean, there's some current events that what Musk is now apparently going to be purchasing, right?
Thank God.
And then you have, and how do I say this?
PayPal is facing the House committee.
They don't ban people for death threats as long as they're certain types of people. And then we have the Kanye thing. And I'm just wondering if anyone wants to say anything about the Kanye thing.
I think it is. Honestly.
Let
him do what he's going to do.
More and more, I think about investing in companies that make popcorn because like the world has gone crazy.
Yeah.
And it's so just like take yourself out of it and look at everything real quick. It's like, holy shit, what timeline is this? You know?
Well, and I would say probably the reason that it's getting crazier is because they are trying to close down anything that is outside of a window of safe content. And I'm not talking about racy stuff. I'm talking about literal freedom of speech.
Well, Kanye's stuff is just overtly
political.
Christian religious.
You are talking about racy stuff.
Let it on there. Like,
somebody in chat was asking what it is. In general, Kanye said some things that were directed toward a particular demographic, and got his Twitter turned off, and then it got turned back on, and then now he's looking at buying Parler, or is buying Parler. And so he
also wore a White Lives Matter shirt.
Not only that, he's being sued
the Kanye thing. How many do you want to? How many do you think?
He's being sued by Floyd's family.
He's being sued by Floyd's family, which is related to the Scott Adams tweet I was just thinking about.
Yes, and he put Floyd's daughter through college, or gave her $2 million or something for college. I read this morning.
Really?
Yeah. And so somebody was bringing that up.
What are they going to sue him for? He said that he had fentanyl in his system, right?
He
did, didn't he?
I saw the coroner's report. There was no cause of death was like no fatal injuries or whatever. It was the fentanyl and
this is what they're suing him for. He basically said what you're saying right now. Yeah. I read the document from the coroner basically. And
I read it too.
And then
but the standard was set by them suing. I get the guys switched. Alex Jones and the lawsuit that just came out with the Sandy Hook thing.
Right.
And so I think they jumped on that and said, "Oh, well."
Yeah.
Right.
And
they're trying to set precedent to scare people from talking.
But it's also attacking freedom of speech.
Yeah, it's freedom of speech is the thing,
and what it's being attacked.
We already, the Fourth Amendment is dead, right? Fourth Amendment is dead. They're trying to kill the Second. The Second is what protects the First, but they're trying to kill the First right now. With anyone that has any level of following that they can't.
And we saw that last week on the show here, where we're streaming, and then all of a sudden our numbers go, whoosh, and Sean and I have been seeing that over and over on our shows as well.
Yeah, and it's like
I'll tell you what. Nobody mentioned this is an experiment, and we probably should even put something into the DAO to say we should experiment with this, and or try to keep, if we want to keep the numbers up, let's just self-restrict our and see if the numbers stay at 173 or around. Right?
I think it's an interesting experiment.
Well, do that experiment. Have a list of wait until half the show to turn off the censor.
Yeah, have a list of
self. We waited until half the show and then started uncensoring ourselves, and then it plummeted immediately as soon as we turned the corner.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. We all know the words to say.
That's what we do.
It's an actual experiment. It's a thought experiment in real time. Like what happens here. It's an applied.
Yep. And you have to wonder, I mean, in the end, how does this resolve? It's like, say, in 20 years, we'll look back at this. We will see where we are now. Is it more evident, or was there something is there something in between that?
We have 173 people watching now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I
who's going to be the first to say something you can't say?
All right, we got through current events with 176. So let's see where it goes. So last week, here's part one of the experiment. Last week, I remember specifically because I was hosting last week too. So I'm like looking at what the numbers say and stuff. It was like 300 and something people at this point. And then I went into the topic and I immediately said what was in the question, which was words that are very not people have. I don't know. Those are some of the key words. What the question was, and as soon as I uttered them, it was like 4. I was like, what?
Yeah. Also, you had, like you said, 300 something people viewing,
and
then people in the chat were like, "Hey, 300 people viewing," and when that was over, you had like 100 views.
And it must be, right, exactly. We saw this morning with the lot. That's what I was kind of referencing with, like, the lot payout today is lower than it usually is, because there's usually the way that we do it is we like round down to the nearest thousand or something like that, right?
The most significant digit, whatever the place is. Yeah.
Whatever the thing is, we got a thing. And it's typically within a range. It's like reliably within a certain range. So it was like an outlier in the data, So there's like an accounting. I don't think 300 people was like, screw that topic. Maybe they were. I don't know. But at the same time, globally, I don't think so. So there's like an accounting thing that happened. I don't know what that's about.
Yeah.
All right.
I've seen it over
something
over
on that.
history.
I've had videos recently which are views disappear. My Janice McAfee video interview had 4,000. I looked yesterday, 900.
That's weird.
I watched it backwards though, so
see
if there are any codes. So maybe I did it right.
Trying to get the secret message. Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. Be kind, please rewind. That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's
man.
great. So cool. Good little current events segment. Let's move along to the topic of today. What do you say? So today,
how about before we read any question, we predict whether or not it's going to cause the views to plummet?
I think we're okay today. I think we're okay. Yesterday, that like specifically that it was like, I say yesterday, last week, it was specifically like what could go wrong and what are the bad things that governments could do. So of course that's what was like not okay to talk about.
We didn't even get to the fact that Liz Truss stepped down today, though. I tried to tweet that out and it got stopped.
Oh yeah. I saw that this morning. Somebody posted that. That was actually the first thing that I read when I woke up this morning. I opened up Den Social and I was like, all right, what's up here? And I saw that. Made it not even a month, right? Or something, or what is it?
Yeah, 44 days.
Yeah. 44 a little over a month. So I was like, oh wow, well that was quick. That was faster than Scaramucci or whatever, as the mayor. White House. So
the
mooch, smooch the mooch. All right. So today we're talking about one of my like favorite topics about what the future could hold: personalized identity on the blockchain. Now that could relate to some of the scary stuff we talked about last week. It very well could, but that's the theme. We mentioned IoT and stuff a little bit. There's some of that mixed in. So let's talk about these types of things and how.
Did we say what IoT was, just in case somebody watching doesn't know what that means?
Internet of things. Yeah, it's just the idea that like any little old thing can be on the internet now. A light bulb, a refrigerator, a toaster.
Toasters talking to your refrigerator.
Probably your tomato plant somehow. I don't know.
And a lot of that is the thought that a lot of that is documented through the use of NFTs, because I just saw an article that the IRS is now wanting to somehow put their hands in NFTs, or there was an article
which
about
is so
that
impossible
yesterday as well.
Well, on top of the fact the way they already count stuff, if you sell one, then you would owe taxes. So what's different?
Report it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the accounting is where that'll be an interesting topic if that gets voted in. I don't know a lot about the accounting, but that is one of the topics you can vote for right now for November.
I'm unavailable that week, by the way. So
yeah. Yeah. So all right. So the topic this week is personalized identity on blockchain, and that was nominated by Reject Archons. And let's get into it. We have Hyperion Frequency. Cool. Nice animated GIF you got there. I like it. Question: can we talk about the dangers of having a centralized virtual identity, the threat of hackers and identity thieves? It is imperative that everyone have a backup identity just in case a world leader or government loses their mind. Or is it? I read that as a statement. Web3 doesn't eliminate hacking. It just creates an obstacle for said hackers to improve and train their skills. Do we need internet police? Can blockchain save us? So I'll say, like, with the Web3 thing, yeah, it's an arms race, basically. It makes it more difficult to be an elite hacker, which is good.
I don't know. I don't know. I think you have more info now. Let's look at the DAO. If you remember the DAO from the original, which ended up killing real Ethereum, right, and splitting it, right? So that, in my opinion, and this I'm going to talk on a technical level. This isn't even politics. Architecturally, that is what you should expect on Ethereum, because there's good and bad there. There's good because it forces people to build better stuff. It makes the code open source, so on. But the bad about it is that unless you build in mechanisms like bounties or something else, the only incentive that is out there is for people to attack those contracts that hold value. That is the only incentive. There isn't, like, say, and we're working on stuff to do this. There isn't the counter. Like, say, if you can build in an incentive for people to hunt down bots and hunt down bad actors, that's what you want, because the other side of it is already there, and you're just going to spawn somebody at some point who's going to find that hole that you don't know is there in your contract and steal all of your customers' money.
Or information for that, if we're talking identity.
Value. We should just value, right?
Yeah. Well, the thing to me that's really dangerous about decentralized identity that nobody talks about is the idea that if we're going to have a decentralized identity, how easily can you discard it? How easily can you adopt a new identity? Does your reputation need to carry with you across identities? And if we can't say that it doesn't, then how can we have a system that's truly free?
Right.
So the question said the dangers of having a centralized virtual identity. That's where
I'm saying centralized in the sense that the centralized creation of decentralized identities is still a centralized identity.
Well, and it's centrally available, even if that data is decentralized.
Like, you have to go to the DMV to get a new on-chain identity.
So it's not ever really.
No, it's not.
Decentralization even really possible?
The way that in my opinion, that most projects, including decentralized identity projects, are looking at stuff has some flaws because of that, and that's why Dragon Jane, how do I say this? Came up with, fully believe in separating the proof from the payload, from the actual data that you care about, because that means I can have proof on chain and nobody knows shit about what that proof is. But then when I present to you, hey, I'm over 18, and it's verified by the DMV or somebody you trust or somebody that your colleague or something, and you can look on chain and see that was granted at a certain date in the past and signed by certain known people that then you can say, okay, you're over 18. I can sell you this cigarette or this beer, and yet nobody else knows that I'm over 18, or it's just an interesting thing.
Authority, though, does.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's the point of centralization.
You can't buy something if you
have to worry about.
But not if it's other people. That's what I'm saying. If it's a key
other
signing.
people, then yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
that's the thing. It wouldn't have to be only other people. I'm saying in some cases you would want your hospital or your doctor to say, oh yes, Joe is, whatever. But it's other times you would want, okay, I've met with, 300 people who have all also met with other people, and we've all signed each other's keys, and we've all verified each other's different parts of identity, eye color, height, age, right?
Yeah.
That becomes something real, because now I know you're not a bot. I mean, and it's easy to identify who the bots are. And if on top of that, you put bounty on all of those transactions, then there's a reason for someone independently to go out and challenge, whether certain identities are real.
Right.
Anyway.
All right. Sorry.
Something like that could clean up. Could something like that then clean up the Twitter bot thing with?
Yes.
When I'm thinking about like Elon
Absolutely.
buying
Absolutely.
Twitter and all that.
Yep.
Because an article came out recently. I have been screaming about this forever, that the census is wrong. And finally, I've been vindicated. An article came out proving that the census is off over, it's either 14 or 16 states, hundreds of thousands of people. Maybe it was millions. I don't remember.
I wonder which states.
The census is wrong. Red and blue.
No, mainly blue. Mainly
blue, but there were a couple red. But I can send you. I'll put the article in the chat. It's pretty incredible. But this is where like something like this is, because then they use those numbers. Oh, here's where our numbers go down. But they use those numbers for districting maps and having power in Congress.
Yep.
And other things.
Yep. Yeah, and apportioning representatives and all that fun stuff.
Well, also in counting votes.
The mechanism by which California lost reps
and funding, and funding too. That's how they cut up funding.
You have 1,000 votes, and the census says that there's 1,500 people. That makes sense. You have 1,000 votes, but there's really only 900. Well, then
then you got
some questions.
Which goes into. I mean, it
does count households.
Talk about that, but.
Yeah, that's veering into off topic probably, but I would say like it's important to I think about education a lot and the state of education, and a lot of people don't understand how the existing system is supposed to work in the first place. And if more people did, I think they would. Hopefully, I would think that they would apply, how it's supposed to work versus how it's kind of working, and say, well, maybe that's not working the way it's supposed to, and it's not quite the way it should be.
Well, and then there's the fact that, the census is reported at the household level. Like they just take the word of the person who answers the survey. You don't know how many people are actually living in a place. So that one's actually kind of an interesting fun fact.
They always come back like 20 times, right?
And then they come back to 20.
You guys, you have to answer this.
Stalk you.
Yeah, you have to answer this. And I'm like, no.
So creepy.
Can I?
I didn't answer this.
Can I say something about the Hyperion frequency thing? Because something that you have to think about is when they are building these systems, and you're talking about we already have centralized ID, right? You have a social security number, and we have a record somewhere. That the issue is, and it's the same thing with CBDC. Oh shoot. I just said that, and look at the number.
Oh no!
I'm sorry, I did not even mean to do that. I said it. That was the word.
It might have been me.
Did the number go down?
Oh, did it? Okay.
It's fine. It's whatever,
okay.
Dude.
I just looked. Yeah. So anyway, I'm sorry that it could be used for good if it were set up honorably, and they used something that didn't affect rights that we already have constitutionally, right? That the issue, it's the same thing with identity. If the government sets it up and there's a single registry and certain people can look it up and find out anything about you, or insurance companies can, that's bad. But if it's set up so that you have the ability to say, well, you know what, I'm going to do this over here, but I'm going to have a different identity over here, that's entirely fine and reasonable. So
yeah, that should be allowed.
Yeah, and if the government's using it too, like are all of these all this money going to Ukraine, is it in a CBDC on an open ledger where we can all see who it's really going to?
Yeah.
But I might be up for that.
I will tell you, if there is, let's say, ideal world, a bloodless revolution, whatever. Let's just say that happens. What literally should come out of what we all now know is that all of that infrastructure for watching us, looking at us through our phone cameras and stuff like that, should be turned on our elected representatives and the bureaucrats.
Right. We should have privacy for the powerless and transparency for for the powerful.
Yes, it should only be pointing at them. It's ridiculous that this is what's going on. And, founding fathers rolling over in their grave. This is ridiculous.
Having your life pinned down like that ought to be the cost to becoming wealthy and powerful through election.
Yeah.
Yeah, John said that. That's in I put that in my my tribute video. He talked about how our government is allowed to have all of these secrets, but they're also allowed to spy on their own citizens. It's it's nuts.
And we should have them pinned under glass for even having privilege of the role.
Yeah,
exactly.
So what about Hyperion Frequency's question about a backup identity, right? Is that imperative? Is that something? And
it's crazy how crazy that sounds, and how immediate. It's like, I think Greg even said they should allow us. It just our way of thinking is so opposite of his statement that it makes me feel sad that we have to think about it. Pretty extreme when it comes to freedom thinkers nowadays, and even us. It makes me sad that we have fallen as far as we have.
It's weird to think about it and think like, that's a good question. You know what I mean? Not like 20 years ago, I'd have been like, that's like, oh yeah, that's an interesting idea. That's a cool concept.
Yeah.
It's kind of a sci-fi concept. You know what I mean? A backup identity. But then you think about it today and it's like, that might be a good idea. That's really more relevant than it's ever been in my lifetime, is the concept of that.
It's no longer the setup to a dystopian plot. It's the setup to today's plot.
Because I remember I used to carry 2 passports just for this kind of reason, right? It's not like, so in the government, you can do that a lot. You can carry a civilian passport, and we had a blue and a red, right? One was like, it wasn't diplomatic. It was like an official state business passport, which was the red one. So I had that one, and I had my civilian blue one. And it was specifically it was a backup ID is what it was. It was the same ID. It was me still, right? But the passport stamps are not the same because they're 2 different passports. Right. And so what that was used for was, for example, the last 3 years I was in the Navy. I wasn't on a ship anymore. I was a tech rep. I was working with a bunch of civilians. And instead of living on a ship, we would fly out to a ship if it couldn't fix something and help them fix it and show them and fly home. So sometimes that would be in whatever country was nearby. So we had to go to Oman, or we had to go to Dubai or Bahrain or Israel. And so the funny thing about that is, this is the way it was at the time. If we were to go to Israel and get our passport stamped in Israel, we couldn't use the same passport to go into the UAE, for example. Right? They'd be like, you recognize Israel as being a real country and went there and let them stamp your passport. You can't come in here. So if we, you know what I mean? So we had to carry 2 IDs to be like, no, I don't go there. Let me come help my friend. And then the other was that, let's say you go somewhere, you check into a hotel. Some of them used to, maybe still do. They would take your passport. They would make you leave your passport at the front desk, depending on what country you were in. And so if you're in some country and the passport is at the front desk, somebody else has it, and all hell breaks loose as a civil war or something, or like you need to get out of there. You need to get taken out of there. Well, you have your backup passport, and maybe it's not the one that was stamped into the country, but it's a passport, and you can use that to get the hell out. That kind of thing. So there are legitimate uses, and the reason I tell those stories is I have met people where I've said things that to me seem like, okay, there's good uses for it, and they're like, why would you want to do that? You must be a bad guy if you want to have a backup ID. Oh, I don't know, but no, like it's a real thing that you think about sometimes.
Well, and there's some cases
it's stigmatized well, if you don't have anything to hide, there's
well, it starts the presumption that people ought not be free to move about borders.
It's like
can I say something too? When our government, when our government actually honored the Constitution, right? So let's say Old West or prior. I don't know when it lost, probably early 20th century, but before that, like carpetbaggers, that's a negative because they have a bad reputation. Medicine men, they go from town to town, and to be able to change their rep is for a bad reason, right? To cover up past action. Whereas when the government no longer respects the God-given rights that are declared, that that are supposedly there, that now all of a sudden that's just because a lot of people don't even think about that these days. We're losing those base rights, and in that case, when the government might enact a law that is how do I say this, illegal essentially, or unconstitutional, I guess, that would be one of the legitimate reasons when someone would need to have alternate IDs, right?
I guess so.
Twitter or something else that I need.
Because it could and we don't have to, like, we can use modern examples that exist today, like if you live under the CCP, for example, right? Like you see people getting taken away because you're this person, or you see modern examples
believe this way.
Yeah. So like it's a survival. It could come down to a survival thing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That kind of thing. Like maybe you didn't necessarily do anything wrong. Maybe you, for example, and this is highly controversial to talk about too, I guess, but maybe you did something like assist the United States to translate on the ground in the country that they're occupying. And then all of a sudden they had to get the crap out of there. Money. And there's people going around door to door with the biometric scanners trying to figure out who among the locals helped those dirty Americans. And if they find you and you match up to the ID in the biometric scanner, you're done. You know what I mean? So a backup ID could be useful in that situation where, there is a regime change. Basically, you went from different people controlling the city you live in, and what was once very much okay for you to do and encouraged is now a death sentence. That happens. That's real shit that happens, So we're seeing it play out in situations where, like in Iran, they're killing children in Iran for protesting, and of course, backup ID don't sound too crazy to me right now.
Well, I mean, and governments would like it if everybody thought of this as a taboo, right? Because what they really want is the ability to round up all the children and kill them, So to a certain degree, these regimes with these powers need to have, like, they want absolute control is what they want. Yeah. Whether or not it's the good regime who's using it for good or the bad regime who's using it for bad, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. It's dangerous to give them that power. And to turn this idea into a taboo is part of how they retain that power.
So the last point in that question then, in Hyperion Frequency's question, can blockchain save us? Can this be used to save us from that kind of thing?
It can, assuming if we use it the right way.
If we use it the right way, yeah.
And who's and can I say there's going to be required a lot of self-control of crypto people, because guess what? The projects that are actually going to be building what is needed are not going to get hyped. They're not going to get huge influxes of capital from Andreessen Horowitz. They're not going to get any of that stuff. And the ones that you're going to see on Twitter over and over and over are going to be the ones that are built exactly the way that the central authorities would want. And I say it as an absolute. There's no way around that. No pretty pictures around it. The ones that will get funding are the ones that are not really going to solve the real problem.
With the exception of a few that have a...
I'd say no. I say you would have to show me and say, hey, this one is, and yeah, I don't.
So like I've cryptically mentioned before, Rivet does intend to decentralize node infrastructure, and we have a cryptic plan to make it happen before anybody can stop it. Yes.
So you got to sneak it in there before it's it's
going in the mainstream door. and then it's getting turned on.
That's wild. I know that Chainflip
We have a
Labs
centralized
has
service right now, technically.
Chainflip Labs has funding, and that's a native cross-chain decentralized exchange that allows you to conduct, based on whatever identity you choose to use, conduct exchanges between tokens and stuff. I don't know if that counts as something that would be, important, disruptive, that matters by your definition. But I know they've got pretty good funding for that project.
I'm not saying that honorable projects won't get funding. I'm talking if you have a project that's focused on the four-letter word, four-letter acronym, or you have a project that's focused on decentralized identity. Those things are all cooked in. They have enough of the big players involved and enough of the funding that they are not operating in a way to directly solve the real issues, to really provide the capabilities needed. And who knows? I mean, I might be wrong, right? But
so you're saying like
in a marketplace for capacity that you couldn't require identity around.
What do you mean?
So you could be on the system with all the network capacity you need, and you can't require anybody to show ID at the entry point. So you can build on it.
Yeah. I mean, that's great, but that's not real. I mean, that's not
basic requirements for.
Depends on what you consider an ID, I guess.
Yeah,
I got a
basic
question
requirements
on
for
that.
escaping.
I remember a couple of years ago when this was all started. There was some really great projects like Civic, the Key, and some of these took off and were utilized by different apps and companies. But at this stage in the game, if you support something like this and it fails, what happens with all that information? Your identity has all been given to that project.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Civic, and I'm going to ruffle feathers, maybe, wasn't a good project. I mean, it wasn't decentralized. It was an app that had a blockchain recording stuff, right?
Yeah, they
raise money is like,
they made a beer vending machine.
Yeah, I mean, it's bullshit. Okay, it was just bullshit, whatever. And I was always like, well, wait a minute, it's on, and it did not do the thing which a properly designed identity system would never hold your factors of identity. Right. It might have a blockchain to allow you to prove them. There might be some infrastructure
this goes back to what you were talking about earlier with the engineering decision to separate the payload from the proof, that kind of thing.
Right. So, and that's why, I mean, Civic, it was holding everything, or at least it was held in some way that was kind of like, well, really, what's the damn point?
Joe,
interesting.
Anyway.
At its core, the thing that we're building separates the payload from the proof when it comes to capacity. Like, you could actually sell pretty much anything with it.
Cool.
You really like this idea.
That's great. and you got, I mean, it's like, I'm not saying, but you don't have $200 million from Andreessen Horowitz, do you?
Not yet.
And yeah, so I mean,
have a call into him.
Okay, let's move on to Jacob Wayne's question. What do you say? Jacob Wayne has a question. As personalized identity mechanisms are built out for blockchain technologies, it's possible that government can see an opportunity to override this wonderful concept with one of a controlling dark nature. Do you think it's possible to create these protocols to completion before government entities commandeer them for their own selfish purposes? Great. That kind of is like what you were saying. Like, you got to hurry up and build it out before somebody comes in and says, no, you got to build it this way. Sort of like what I was complaining about with the Artemis program, where you have government saying, no, you got to build it this way. That's stupid. You're not allowed to build it good.
Right. Exactly. And I think that's the rush we're all in, right? Right now we have people strong arming us to build things a certain way, but we don't have people able to force us yet. And it does require an extra level of strategy for people who are building to really think through how to do this. But it's doable. It's profoundly doable. It's a path that we're still walking at Rivet. It's not as easy as some other paths we could have taken. I'll put it that way. But it's a path we're walking.
Yeah. Well, and it's an added filter which is makes startups much less efficient in this space, which is intentional than they could be, because you essentially have to run every substantive decision through a set of lawyers, and you have to understand how to do that in order to build freaking software, which is absurd.
Right.
I mean, and it only works for us because I used to be a lawyer. So
yeah. Well, and that's why it's one of those things that I think in the end, it's software. It doesn't matter what they put in for, they'll have standards and here's how you plug into this because we accept as long as you give us their full identity and stuff like that. That's the bad stuff that's going to happen. Yet it's just, you could do all this on paper. I could, it would be not very inefficient, but if you have a blockchain to back it, it's extreme help. But a lot of what we're talking about is essentially documents and the fact that I can prove that somebody signed this document saying something. And that you can prove it is even better independently, well, is the important thing.
Cryptographic techniques, that you can use to prove without showing proof.
Right. Yep. So that's why I don't know. I mean, I do understand there's certain areas where they're going to try to force something through, but it appears to me that since 2016 or even maybe a little earlier, that a lot of that stuff is instead being slowed down. So I don't think they're rushing to put it in place in a bad way, in as much as they are trying to slow down anything that might affect their ability to have full info. So and therefore, that's why it's fun right now to be building identity systems, because a lot of the academic stuff is, in my opinion, showed itself to be not really great effect.
Now, I would also say not all is lost, in the sense that we do have some freedom lovers that are still in power. Like there are some decision makers who are making decisions towards the ideal as opposed to towards a system of control.
What country is that?
They're not in power, unfortunately. So you have like Hester Peirce, SEC, for example. She's still there in the conversation, even though
Hester Peirce. I don't know. Is she just controlled opposition though? Because at what point has she ever said anything beyond
controlled opposition? Because
we all tend to like her because she seems to come from a rational and logical point of view in terms of how do we apply this to this. Yeah, but at the same time, she's said that Hinman was an honorable and professional colleague, and there are various things that she doesn't say shit about what's going on right now. Why is that?
Probably because she's not allowed to.
Well, then why not? Then here's the thing: if it's unconstitutional, if it is illegal, if it's unethical, it's at least one of those things on some spectrum, right? Why would she not whistleblow that? What the fuck is the point of?
To be Snowden.
Okay, well, what the fuck is the point of having someone who is honorable there if they're not actually willing to act on that honor?
I call that. They were not there at all.
No, it's not. I think not. I think that this is the point. If I were there, as an example, I'd say, you know what, guys, this is bullshit. We have to expose this. And yes, I'm going to lose my cushy fucking government job, right? Oh well, right? I mean, what? Right. In which case,
what's the point? Let's just say now's not the right time for that stand. What if you can influence things such that stand is likely more successful the longer you stay?
What if? Has she?
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, there can be good circumstances for good people to not quite but
the point is, the benefit of the doubt should go if there's evidence, and there's no evidence that that's the case.
No, I know, I think whether or not we can trust Hester ultimately will depend on if she does her General Custer moment at some point in the future. After that, we can probably completely trust.
No, I mean, I think it's basically you have a handful of literal demons all over the place, and you see one person who just is a thief. It's like, oh my God, the thief. that thief is my person. They represent me.
That's a fair
They're
point.
not a demon.
That is a fair point.
It's like that's all it is. It's like,
That is
crypto
a fair
mom.
point. It could. I mean, that is one view one could take on it.
Yeah, we couldn't figure out who originally
thieves,
dubbed her crypto mom.
well, I don't know.
Because I even think that was intended.
I
It's so
heard that
easy
the,
to manipulate Bitcoiners.
If there were no freedom lovers there at all, then we wouldn't have the system we have at all, though. Like they would have already taken it over.
I
the
don't think
thieves
that's true.
turn on the demons.
Like they would have rushed out
Because
CBDC, for example.
At some point, like the what's happening with the the traders at Chase and all that got in trouble for manipulating silver are now suing because they were just doing their job and what they were told to do, and so now the thief is turning on the demon that is really responsible for the silver manipulation. So I wonder if it would be a case like that where it would be that, but in crypto, if the thief will be able to turn on the demon and expose who's really pulling the strings.
Well, and if she were actively, if she were outspoken at all about, without even mentioning the projects, Ripple or Library or anything else, if she were just analyzing the pattern, publicly saying, we're doing this wrong, whatever. But none of that's happening. He's
but
what's the
merely
point?
adding inefficiencies to the process slows them down, and if nothing, we've seen them be inefficient.
Yeah, I mean that's the only real advantage we have is that they are bureaucrats.
Exactly, and bureaucrats work slower when they're arguing.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think they have their marching orders from high above.
Regulation. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the people who are really paying their salary in Wall Street don't want crypto. So they want to at least
got that yet. It's probably due to the fact there are people arguing with them.
Well, they can't. The problem is if they take too heavy-handed an approach, it's going to be too obvious.
I think the most telling thing of all of that was
but they
the video.
Do stupidly obvious things all the time.
That most telling thing of that was the video and the words out of Gensler's mouth that said, the current market makers, they are purposefully slowing down innovation because and if you want to be part of it, you have to give them your business or part of their business so that they will always be in control. And that literally is against the Hobbs Act. It's unconstitutional. I mean, and he's outright says it.
That's exactly the same thing that I was just thinking about in my head, Lisa, was you look at who's heading the SEC right now, and you watch him teaching aspiring entrepreneurs how to play ball in this country. And he tells them blatantly, here's how you do it. 1, you got to give them half your company. 2, he even calls them the central monopolists,
the market makers,
the central monopolists, which is an accurate term. It's a class he's teaching at MIT. He's teaching real shit, and he says that one of the things that they do is they slow down the pace of innovation so that they don't get out competed, so that startups don't overtake business from them and erode their monopoly on stuff, because they don't want somebody else to take their monopoly away from them. And so he's saying, here's how it is. I work with these people. I'm familiar with these people. This is how it works. Right. And then this is the guy that's enforcing policies that are directed towards just the most disruptive startups, it seems like. None of the obvious scams that are on CNBC telling you to put your grandma's money into freaking Elongate. Not the people that are literally trying to cheat and steal money. Those people, maybe Kim Kardashian, because she's got money to get, to throw away or something. We'll go after her and she'll just fold and she'll save face. We'll do that for a publicity stunt. But otherwise, we're not going to go after anybody who's harming people. We're only going to go after companies that are doing something innovative and interesting and have patents for it because it's new and interesting. It's
And they know
so
we'll
obvious,
be the new market makers.
and
that
he's
will
so on the
displace
nose
them.
about it, and it's infuriating, I guess, is my
Well,
I mean,
absolutely
right.
Proof in pudding. I will tell you. I actually think that was probably my biggest mistake, not recognizing or caring or knowing about that when we started Dragon Chain, because we did not ever take on any of the big VCs, any of the big groups that now, and it was because it was too early. A lot of them were hoping that this whole tech would get killed, but that is the primary reason that we struggle with certain things, because we don't have the people on the inside. That's why the SEC came after us, that we weren't we weren't on the protected list.
Right, because whatever you're doing with it is not what Apple and Google are deciding to do with it behind closed doors.
Right.
And that's ultimately, to me, that's going to be the really interesting thing, is those guys are working on it. They have all the money in the world and all the incentive in the world to do
they also are hiring all the wrong people. I know Amazon is they're just gonna do copy. They're gonna make a copy of Ethereum.
Their plan is to ultimately buy up the companies, right? That's the plan.
We're seeing that. We should move on to the next question, but we are seeing the buying up companies thing is starting to happen across the board. My wife works in biotech. She's seeing it in that industry where companies have gone through a crunch and downsized, and now there's mergers and acquisitions from those that are left standing. You see it in the tech, software startup scene, where people, across the board.
You guys,
even
can you guys
in the cannabis industry.
Can you guys tell me why they're not waiting for the crash coming? Why are they? Maybe it's just the preliminary round, because
I think the venture capitalists are hoarding their money right now because they're at the beginning phases of funds. I think we got 8 months before we start seeing major venture capital based moves.
Yeah, makes sense.
What's
the holdup, Greg? What do you think that's being waited?
Well, I think they don't have to spend their money yet, but once they get towards the end of any money they've raised right now is money for next year, and I think they're going to hold on to it for as long as they can next year. Until they get to the end of the year and they actually have to spend that money to meet their obligations to their LPs.
See, I've never been in that world personally, so I don't know. I'm not as familiar.
Remember, we have a vote coming up.
Yep. Yeah, I would be willing to bet a lot of it is going to be after election season. Like, there's just going to be a funding blitz at the end of the year.
Wow. Interesting. Cool. Well, thanks. I Am for I Am has the next question. And it looks like the final question today. So I Am for I Am asks, I'm generally anti-KYC on most interactions online. Privacy is a right. Question, how does one stay anonymous while interacting with websites when sites require some sort of valid identity, picture, government-issued ID, etc.? Great question. Thanks for that. So if you're anti-KYC, how is today's topic interesting to you? Personalized identity on the blockchain.
As an anti-KYC person, I will say that this topic is of major interest to me because it can be executed in a way that makes it possible to build anti-KYC systems using identity. Done like Joe was talking about, where you have the the payload separated from the verification. Like, these types of systems can be functionally giving us the protection that KYC does without exposing people's actual identities.
Yep. And in the meantime, I think the only real option is to just not comply, not participate in, if you don't want to provide that, then just don't use that service, I guess, right?
That really isn't the question.
It's going to have to be voting with feet.
Interact, by doing that, which is tough.
Yeah. And there are some ways, like, say, people do atomic swaps, which is amazing stuff, and not for, I think somebody on here maybe last week or week before talked about that for legitimate reasons. I need this token to do that, and I have this token. Here it is. Boom. You can do many things without a Coinbase account. It makes it harder, for sure.
Dude, who doesn't have a Coinbase account?
Yeah. I think I've got one somewhere. I got a lot of accounts I need to close. I need to hit the reset button on a lot of things.
Went IPO.
Yeah, the identity thing with KYC is like, even if you're pro KYC, even if you want all the KYC, then it's still much safer to do it in a decentralized way, where you don't have massive databases centralized that are just like waiting to get dumped on some marketplace on the somewhere, sold to people that want to steal those IDs.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. It needs to be recognized, and this isn't even a blockchain thing, but the very groups that are selling your info, how do I say this? Anybody who wants to store your info is putting themselves at risk for liability, theoretically, if there were any liability for a data breach, right? And there should be. It should affect their stock price.
Say, but are they ever held accountable for that?
No, they're not, and that's because people don't understand enough to care, I guess, yet. Right. But that's the point. Right now, the liability, not only is there no real liability, but it's actually overridden by the value of monetizing your data by selling it to people that are going to use it for bad reasons you don't want. And so theoretically, if we can get some of these tech systems set up, it would be a good indicator. If I have one service, I have two different providers of the same service, and one of them is using this system that lets me hold my own identity data. You have to think, well, why isn't the other one doing that? And it's going to be for obvious reasons. Problem is, people are too stupid to get there yet.
Well, I think what we really need people advocating for is permissionless private new identity creation. Like, you should be able to create as many new identities as you want. Mm-hmm. And you should be able to do it privately, and you should be able to do it without asking anybody else's permission.
That's probably the most direct answer to that question that I Am was asking. Like, how does one actually do it? How does one actually stay anonymous while adhering to, website requirement for KYC?
Identity site and open it the same way you might open a new wallet.
Yeah, that's kind of like in line with what I've always done, since I understood more about how transparent things like Bitcoin and Ethereum are, where it's like, okay, I'm gonna go buy this one thing that isn't supposed to be accessible in this one country, so I guess I'm gonna have a different ID and jump through all these hoops and fire up a VPN and spin up a new wallet and have a different, like everything, just so I can buy something that's perfectly legal, just like to have. It's perfectly legal to have, right? There's no rule against having it. There's just like rules against companies in other countries allowing Americans to access it.
Can I bring up a one that's this isn't too heavy, but it's we were over in Europe for that the blockchain conference in Paris, right? And there was one anyway, we were over there. While we were over there, there was the last 2 episodes of Game of Thrones, right? And so I thought, okay, we'll just watch it, Okay, we get on there and it's like, no, you are disallowed because you're an American and your account is American and you are in Britain or wherever we were, and I'm like, what? And so I thought, okay, I'll pay for it separate here. And so I went through the entire thing, set up a separate account, and it saw that my card had my method of payment was American. It's like, no, you can't do it over here. I'm like, there was literally no way for me to do it except to go through a VPN, and it was just right. It was silly.
You have to open like a bank account in another country, basically.
I never saw stuff like that until so I grew up in the woods, like woods, and like where nobody travels or even has passports. And so I didn't get out of the country to see how things were in other places until I joined the Navy. And I remember the first time I experienced what you're talking about, Joe, was when I was in Dubai. Got a hotel for a few days there. We were in port after like, a long stretch. So we took some time off, and I was like, all right, they got the internet. Awesome. And so I plugged into UAE internet, and it was this sort of walled garden situation where no, you can't access. At the time, Facebook had just come out, and we had figured out that we could use Facebook to talk to family back home for free without having to pay for an AT&T phone card, right? So I'm like, I'm going to talk to my family. So I tried to fire up Facebook, and it was like, can't do that here, bro. We don't play that game. You can't see Facebook. And I was like, oh, there's like that kind of restrictions in the world. I just was, So that was my onboarding to like censorship, basically, to that scale, to that form, that modern. It's like a modern, sophisticated form of
here now.
Book burning.
Like you can't go to RT News if you want to at the moment.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Oh wait, you can't? Where?
A lot of ISPs.
Oh yeah, in Europe, right?
A lot of ISPs block it.
Yeah, I saw that in Europe. You
Wow.
can't consume Russian media in a lot of
Yeah,
Europe.
not
Oh
since
my God.
since literally day one of the conflict, months. They stopped it like right away.
Yep, that and Sputnik.
Now, I mean, I'm not arguing that RT is not a state media outlet. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying it's bizarre to say like this information is bad, that information is okay. You're allowed to know what happens.
Are there any U.S. broadcast networks that don't have some funding from the U.S. government?
Sure. Yeah. Well, what about this?
Like,
what about that? Whatever. But you know what? One of my
and we do ours by the private public barrier, but it's just as a fake of a barrier, right?
Yeah.
There's still former CIA guys commentary adding on
Former.
everything.
Wait a minute. Former?
I don't know if you're ever.
I'm going to challenge you on that word. That's all.
If there is such a thing.
You know what? One of the and I don't know how this relates to that question from I Am, but one of the things that I learned from the information specialist in the Navy, the people I used to hang out with when I was trying to avoid getting told to do random shit that I didn't want to do. I had a clearance, so I would just go hide in their office that nobody had access to and hang out and talk to the information specialists. And one of them, his name was Ron, was bitching about a new policy that the command had put in place where we all had to sign what was called a page 13, which was like officially saying, I will not do this one thing specifically. And if I'm ever caught doing this thing, I can get in mega trouble because I've said I won't officially. Right. So we all had to sign one of those to say that we would not read any of the stuff being put out by the Taliban or by not the Taliban. Who was it? Was it ISIS? I forget what we were calling them at the time, what it was. Oh, wow. But it was like we couldn't like access certain websites. We couldn't even access and read what the enemy was saying that they were doing. Right. And he was like,
sounds like Baptist church camp to me.
Oh yeah.
They make you sign a thing that says like you'll never have sex or
yeah.
I was a contractor at the FBI at the time, and we were all given notice that if you, and it's the same type of thing, we all had to I don't know if we had to agree or not, if we had to sign anything, but essentially that we were not allowed to look at, download, review, or view in any way anything from WikiLeaks.
Yes.
And,
yes.
Me too. It was like, wait a minute.
Yes.
I'm a contractor. Too. I did not sign away my constitutional rights here.
Yeah.
It was just like, are you serious?
I had to sign one of those. I did sign a page 13 about specifically about WikiLeaks. Not allowed to go there. But my point on the thing ridiculous. With my thing with like
I love
forums
WikiLeaks.
and stuff.
It's such a fun site to browse. Everybody should browse WikiLeaks more often.
He was saying, no, first of all, this is my job, is to know what's being said there.
Yeah, it's
and also they're talking about how they want to kill me and how they're going to do it. Like, I want to know what they're planning on doing. I'm going to go read it so I know what the people who want to harm me, how they're going to do it. How does it make sense to say, put your blind, don't read that stuff?
It's a meme. I mean, it's one of those.
They're claiming that they're trying to harm you by putting information in your head.
Yeah,
it's one of those 4chan memes. Okay. I think it was what's his shoot on CNN what's his name, Cuomo, that I believe it was him that said that it's illegal. They literally on CNN said it was illegal to view the WikiLeaks releases, bullshit. And that but it was okay that you need to come to us because we can look at them because we're CNN.
Dude, I heard that literally to go to WikiLeaks today.
They threatened to take away our security clearances. They were like, if you because there was this need to know thing, right? Like, yeah, okay, you got a TS/SCI, nobody cares. You don't have the need to know that. Which there's a lot of compartmentalization. There's truth to that, but that was the thing. They were like, if you read this, it's outside of your purview or whatever. It's outside of your role.
That's the thing. Something that's classified
job
that
from
is
you?
Released.
Yeah,
that's public domain at that point.
So much in the military has changed over the years. It used to be pretty rough, man. Like, do you know what GI stands for?
You mean general
issue?
General issue.
Government issued. You were property.
I thought it was general.
Signed up for the military. You did sign away a lot of your rights, and you became. That's why they could tell you if you got a tattoo, you could get put into jail.
Yeah,
because and then you know what it was for. If you got a tattoo and you got in trouble, do you know what the charge was?
No.
Defacing government property. I swear to God.
Sorry.
So it's a very different place. I mean, me and Dave were talking about the decline of the military when it comes to certain things. Here at Fort Hood, there's an entire section of CID that just arrested people for cheating on their spouses. It's against the law.
I didn't know that, but that is in the UCMJ. Yeah,
to cheat. The military was such a different place, and now I'm sure it's all that stuff thrown to the side.
The UCMJ even goes so far as to dictate the different configurations in which you're allowed to perform sexual acts with your spouse. Like, it goes deep.
What?
Yeah, it basically references like, don't have weird sex. That's bad.
Oh my God,
that's so weird.
Yeah.
So who wants to bet that that's going to? Man, I've hesitated to even say this, but that they're going to require you to date trans because otherwise, anyway.
I don't know. I don't know.
Pretty soon it's going to be impermissible.
It started to come around and bite its own tail. Like, I was for sure the pendulum was going to start swinging back once, trans men were in female sports. We're like, okay, here it goes. And then one side doubled down and the other side had common sense. It's like, hey, they're beating the crap out of us. This isn't fair. But they still doubled down. But when it comes to selective service, signing up for the draft, they have said, yeah, we don't care now if you're a woman, if you were born with a penis or you got a penis, sign up for selective service. So that line has now been drawn. They did come out and say that the government has
equal rights to get drafted. The government can assign you a gender.
That's a pretty good use case for decentralized like ID and stuff, right? Because if you want to change your gender and you want to be a new person, like, you should just.
Well, that's why.
Well, I think it's really interesting that you could now go in jail.
Creation is important.
If you're a male, you can go be with females.
That's what that Brittany Griner in Russia is very worried.
When it comes to
they're about to move
your safety and other people's safety, they don't care. When it comes to the military, they're like, oh no, we're not going to play that.
Yeah, they don't recognize.
You got to sign up for the draft.
Recognize that.
So
yeah,
I think
Russia
that's
doesn't
telling.
care.
Yeah. Russia's one of those places that it's like, we don't have any gay people, and we don't recognize transgender.
We don't care that you think you are.
Iran is like that.
We have people who doesn't acknowledge under criminal statute for
Yeah.
trying to be that, but we catch them all, and if they're caught doing it, it's a crime. So it's not really a status.
Interesting. Well, guess what? We're at about time. Is there anything we want to talk about while we still have like a minute left or so to talk about things and stuff before we go into our round where we say where everybody can follow you and things like that? Anything you've been itching to have a little chat about that we haven't gotten around to?
It's a good question.
If not,
Nothing
then
here.
great. Cool. Well, I think that's our episode on what was it called? Decentralized identity or personalized identity on the blockchain. Yeah. So that's cool. A lot of great questions there. You know, how do you use this stuff? What are the implications of it? What are the use cases? How does it work? What does it help you from? What are the dangers of? Things like that. Those are the kind of questions we want and need for this show. So do continue to throw those questions in. Next week, we're going to be talking about Web3 integrations, which is pretty compatible with this week's conversation. You know, some of the things we're talking about with the IDs could be like super useful and maybe necessary for, I would say, proper Web3 design, right? So big thanks also to the hosts. Where can people follow you, and do you have any updates for us? We'll start with let's see, roll the dice. Satoshi Sean.
So Sean on YouTube and Twitter and all that. I just got that tribute up to John McAfee, which is doing pretty good, and I have an interview with Janice before that. Also, actually, I don't think I talked about. She still hasn't gotten his body yet. There's a petition that you can sign on not GoFundMe, change.org. The links are in both those videos in the description. To go and sign that.
Okay.
It has made a big difference. Like she didn't get his belongings or anything. As soon as she got that, put it up, they gave her the belongings like the next week. So I think it does make a difference.
That's great to hear that it does actually have an impact. Sometimes I wonder if that's just somewhere for somebody to feel better, and does anything happen? So thanks for the feedback. Thanks for
and an interesting thing I asked her is that it's a prison, so you know things happen, and there's been other people that have committed suicide. I mean, it's been like going on 18 months since John died. So, but within that year plus, other people have died and their bodies have been given to their families. So, but I asked her the question, what is your recourse? What are you going to do if they just say, oh, we cremated his body. Oh, we've lost it. What can you do if the government just says that? I'm like, literally, there's nothing you can do except get some money out of them. And that's it. There's nothing you can prove. You can't, because she wants to do an independent autopsy and all that. I was like, there's nothing you can do. You're powerless. And she said, yeah, you're absolutely right. There's literally nothing I could do.
Wow.
It's a government. They could sue them and they could get, a couple $1 million. Well, that's it. But they could never get justice. Which is that's a scary thing to think about.
It doesn't come to that. Yeah.
But check that stuff out. I'm probably gonna get up a crypto meme review. If anybody has any memes you want to send me, shoot them to me on Twitter or Instagrams or Telegrams or any of the grams.
I'll have to go see what's in the memes layer and send you what I find.
Cool. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Sean. Greg, how about yourself, sir?
I would say two things. I can be found probably at some point in time this week talking about the need for unlimited, decentralized, permissionless private identity creation, and you should be too. That's one of the biggest important takeaways from this topic today is that as long as we can go out and create new identities, we're going to be safe, right? And we need to be able to do that privately, and we need to be able to do that without anybody's permission. We need to be able to do it 100 times a day if we choose to. And that's really, to me, the key to having a digital identity system that doesn't take power from everybody and give it to some centralized party somewhere. The other thing I think that we can all do, and where you will find me also this week, is right on your browser right now, pop open a new tab, type in WIKILEAKS.org, hit enter, and just see what's there, because it's crazy, it's cool, and it's legal. So go check it out.
Cool.
That's me.
All right. Thank you very much, Greg. Lisa, where can we find what you're up to and follow you?
Yeah,
and what are you up to?
I am up to all kinds of great stuff. You've got my little TV guide kind of thing. You can see what's going on my channel if you go to the Mighty Layer on Den Social. So den.social, go to layers and find Mighty, and you'll see my latest post has links to all the shows for this week. And then if you make a comment, then the top 3 comments, we're going to give out lot token on the Friday happy hour, which happens to be my 50th birthday. So we're going to have a little birthday party show. All of you are invited. I'm going to put a link in the chat for people to pop in and say hi. And I'm going to give away some lot tokens so people can have voting rights and governance options and be a part of DEN community and all of that. So that's going to be my party favors
Nice.
for
Nice.
for my birthday party.
I love that. Yeah, I love that you made that like your little clubhouse for the community over there. And thank you for using those tools. That's what they're there for. So awesome. Yep. Go check that out. Subscribe to the Mighty Layer, and you will see what Lisa's up to. Joe, can we hear from you for a moment?
Yes. On a bad platform, Jojo Road Twitter, and on a good platform, I'm Joe on DEN. Gosh, I mean, we're working on a few really interesting projects that are not easy, good challenges, and but we have some really good partners that are working them out. And some people have asked, I mean, a lot of that stuff is definitely still in dev. There's some of it that is churning out a small number of transactions, but that's not, it's not an operational system, at least on a couple of them right now. And anyway, I don't know. I generally, I think, we talked about that earlier, but the justice doesn't exist, and the media is theater. So that's about it. But thanks for you guys for joining. I mean, it's always good to get on here with this group, because there's a lot of stuff out there going on, and at least we can get some objective, honest opinions.
Yeah, there's plenty to talk about. That's for sure. Thank you, Joe.
I mean, somebody can keep telling the truth, and this is a place we can do it.
Yeah.
And eventually it will get out there. We have to keep telling the truth.
Yeah. Yep. And we need to keep recording stuff. Like, say, when somebody tweets something that might be controversial, racy, kind of crazy, make sure you put it, you reply to it with @eternalize this, because some of that stuff you would never, I captured the Kanye one. Dave, you didn't capture the one with
I missed Elon's.
the Elon,
yeah.
But somebody else did. I just thought, I was like, awesome. So
yep, I use it all the time.
Cool.
Yeah,
thank you.
So
use
history. So
use the tools that are available to you. Most of the awesome ones are free, it seems like. So at least use those, the ones that are free.
Yep. If you use @unroll followed by @eternalize, you get a really neat result.
Interesting. I hadn't even thought
pretty
about that. You're piping Twitter hacks together, bro.
Yeah, I know.
Well, Eternalize this. I tried to get the devs to throw that functionality in, so you could grab a whole thread, and they did it at one point, but then we had to revert because there were other flaky bits in it, and because it's free, that wasn't like the prime. That wasn't anyone's priority, so it never happened. We're trying to get that kicked off with something.
I got a great Glenn Greenwald thread that was just like 10 tweets long.
Yes.
That I rolled up and then eternalized just the other day.
Nice. Excellent.
Good idea. Thanks, Greg. Thanks for that idea.
Yep.
That's great. Cool. So as far as me, I would say swing back in a couple of hours. We're doing a DEN-DAO meeting, which happens every Thursday, 3 p.m. So this week, we, if you don't know, the modeling of the Matter token on the DEN social platform is such that there are 1,000 Matter that are mined every day by everybody and shared by everybody on the platform. The algorithm decides, who gets the rewards and things like that based on the content published and a lot of things that happen. So 1,000 a day. That's it for like 1,300 years. That's the rate of minting the Matter token. And this week we minted our 1,000,000th Matter, right? So we've got a couple of things to go over business-wise, DEN-DAO governance-wise on the meeting today. Some of the changes we're making to the algorithm to make that system more fair and more resilient and things like that. But we're also going to be doing a little thing for, just a little celebration of our 1,000,000th Matter madness. I don't know what kind of alliteration I can put in there. But we're going to be giving away some prizes. We've got some new merch to show off that you can get with the discount code on it. Little matter symbol on a hoodie, for example, stuff like that. So yeah, 3 p.m. My time, Florida man time. So that's going to be like noon on the Pacific and whatever it is in UTC. But 3 p.m. Eastern is when we do that every Thursday. And that's a meeting. It's a governance meeting. It's a call. It's open to the public. You can join, find info on how to join in the DAO layer on DIN Social, which you can find just by typing in din.social in your address bar on your web browser, right? Don't try to go to Google and type DIN Social. You'll get like a lounge in New York City that's called the Dragon's Den or something, which is probably a cool spot, or DIN Social or whatever it is, shares a name. Go to your actual web browser, type in din.social, and it just goes right there. You can do it on your phone too. Easy peasy. So yeah, that's what I've got. Other than that, let's see. Any other things that I'm forgetting here? Oh, here's what I'm forgetting. Share this episode. The more you share, the more lot our hosts and topic contributors will get. And those are the lot that's used to vote on the topics and direct the show. So definitely share this episode, spread it around, like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you again for Web3 integrations next Thursday at the same time. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
The first tap of a conductor's wand. The first rivet in a mile-high tower. The master link at the genesis of the never-ending chain. The moment a single empty canvas meets a singular master stroke. There is no one thing. Because now, there are many. Because soon, there will be more. Because one is ever the beginning. Like the first link in an infinite chain, or the first rivet in the tallest skyscraper. The master stroke is found in the masterpiece. What will you begin?